Okay, welcome to this video where we've got some examples from our students of some shots that was taken recently on our shoot where we was bursting balloons and doing water sculpture where we was throwing water and capturing shots. So these are 4 examples of what we've got from one of our members. So we've got a splash going on there. And you can see they all need some tidying up and editing. I'm not going to go over every one because these 2, basically the procedure will be roughly the same, and the same with these 2. So I'll pick one of each of these images. So I'm just going to probably close that one to start with. And so we'll look at these 2. Again, the technique's going to be the same. Just have a look, we'll work with that one, so we'll close the other. So we just left these 2 images, and I say the technique really will be the same for the 2 different styles. And we need to analyse and think what's the best way to actually do this. So what we're trying to do is to neaten up the backgrounds in both cases and get the best out of the image. And in this case, a little bit of cropping, and really you've got an image there, you know, but we could smooth out the background on that a little bit, just a tiny little bit, and just make it sort of come out a little bit. And on this one, we need to get rid of all these creases in the background there. So the first thing I would do with this image is I would use the patch tool, and I will get rid of the really bad areas. So in that case, I'm not too worried about these creases. We could probably just go over these and drag these out a little bit. I'm not being too particular. This is the area really that I'm more concerned with. I've probably gone too far there. Let's just deselect that. We'll just do a little bit at a time. So I'm just going to come down there and just go to a darker area. Just dragging to a different area. I'm not worried about the creases. I'm just trying to tone it down a little bit. So we're getting pretty much the same all over. The creases at this stage, it doesn't matter. Something else I'll do is I'll just crop the image first of all. So I'm going to use the crop tool there and get a better composition. Rotate that slightly, shall I? No, I won't. Okay, I'll rotate that back. I'll keep it like that. I'm just going to press enter on that and crop the image. We just lost a little bit at the top, so it needs to be cropped off. Okay, so there we go. So that's our starting point. And really it's looking okay. We've got a high contrast image. We've got really the background should be black, and obviously it isn't. And we've got eye contrasting colours in this area. So in this case, it should be fairly easy to get what we want and get rid of all these creases in the background. First of all though, I'm just going to get rid of this. So I'm just going to use the patch tool again on this. Now, you have to be a little bit careful when you're doing this, because if you get on an edge, you can get quite a smudge on that. So I'm going to come over the edge slightly and go around this area. I'm going to drag that up, but I'm going to come into the water in this case, look, and you can see what's happening when you look at this area down there. I'm trying to get an area where it's going to blend in a little bit better. So I'm going about there, click and let go, and you can see it's made it quite light there, and it's not quite so nice. So I may just go over this little bit. That should do fine. Okay, so next we want to get rid of these creases. Now there's an easy way of doing that. If I right click on this layer and duplicate the layer, click on OK. And then we go to the layer modes, and I'm going to go to multiply. And you can see we're fixed. Now, okay, it may be a little bit, I quite like that actually as it is, so that's, but I can bring a little bit of detail back in here. So let me just add a layer mask on this top layer. So underneath we've got that, on the top layer we've got this. Let's just duplicate this background layer. So I'm going to click on that and duplicate that. So an exact copy that's below this top one. That's just protecting the original image there. So what I'm going to do with this, remember underneath I've got the original layer, so I've got that. And what I'm going to do is to click on a mask, and I'm going to bring back some of the detail back in here that we've made too dark. And to do that I'm going to use a brush on the layer mask, so I'm making sure that I'm actually on the mask, I'm on that area there, that is selected. I'll click on the brush tool, make the brush smaller. So to do that with the keyboard, to the left of the enter key I'm using the two parenthesis or square bracket keys, and the one on the left will make it smaller, one on the right will make it larger. I'm going to use a soft edge brush, so make sure the hardness is down to 0. And we need the foreground colour to be black. And what that means is when I click and paint, if I just do this area, you can see it burns a hole in this. You can see where the black area is and shows what's below. But obviously I don't want to do that there, so let's just undo that. Okay, and what I want to do is to bring back some of this detail. Now the only problem is I don't want to be too bright because I quite like this effect. So what I'm going to do, instead of using, most people use black and white on when they're using this tool, but what I'm going to do is to click on the black there, and I'm going to go to about 50% in the middle there. It doesn't going to be exact. And what that'll mean when I paint, instead of painting and making it, so you know, you could change the opacity as well, but I prefer this way. So I've got it down, I'm using grey, and that will just bring out a little bit. So I'm going in these areas and I'm just bringing this bit of detail back. Make the brush a bit larger. And in the centre there, I quite like the effect on the edge there, so I don't want to change that. Maybe at the bottom just a little bit. Towards the middle there. So I'm just bringing that original back, and there we have your perfect image. Now if that wasn't quite dark enough when you do that in the first instance, what we could do, that one's on normal, let's just look, so that's the original one. And we clicked on multiply. So once I've done that, I could right click on that and duplicate that layer. That will make the blacks even darker. And you can see you could then bring back, or you can change the opacity on the layer. We don't really need to do that, so we can change the opacity to anything to get what we want. But I say I don't need that, but that would be the thing to do if you were still getting those creases and distractions in the background. So that would apply to the other image that was similar. Really easy to put right. Okay, so that one complete, you would then right click, flatten the image, and there you have the completed image. Okay, so let's go to this one now. Now this one is totally different, because if we just make the background darker, it's not going to work, is it? Because we've got these nice bright colours there that we want to correct and put right. Now this one is going to be a lot more complex to put right. But first of all, again, we want a basic crop. So I'm going to take this off, come up slightly with this, come down slightly, and I'm probably going to take this off completely and just have the hand coming in there. Now this is just personal preference. You crop it exactly how you want to. There we are. So I'm going to start with that. I'll probably crop a bit more off the bottom, but just for demonstration purposes, we'll keep it at that. Let's double click the hand tool. That will bring it up full screen. Now, what I haven't done, of course, is to edit the raw file. These are JPEGs that have been sent to me, so you know, I'm working with a low quality image really. They're not massively, if we go to the original size, that's the original size. So, you know, we're going to get probably a little few artifacts where we wouldn't. Just going to crop this edge a little bit more. I'm going to crop a bit more off the bottom. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what I want to do now, I'm going to duplicate the layer, which is protecting the bottom layer. So I always do that first of all. And we just want to smooth that background out a little bit and make this a little bit better. Now if I've got the rough, I'm not sure whether this will work, but what I could do, I'm going to use, let's make an adjustment layer. So I'm going to go to the curves layer. I really don't know whether this will work with the quality of this image. You're better doing this when you've just got the TIFF file from the raw file. So what I'm going to do on that, I'm going to put an adjustment on there. So we click on adjustments and I'm going to use the curve. So now all I'm looking at is the hand. Let's just see if we can bring a little bit of detail back on the hand without it being overkill. And actually I quite like that on this area as well, so that's not too bad. Let's just have a look on the old, let's just see the difference between the two. And I think that's probably overall a lot better than what we had originally on the whole image. And of course we got some highlights blown, but I could get those back, but that would be another lesson. So let's just go with that. I think that's a better adjustment. Should we bring the opacity down just a tiny little bit? Okay, so we'll go to there and I'm going to right click on that and merge it down with the layer below. So there's the new adjustment and there's the one below. Okay, so let's duplicate this layer now just so we're protecting this one before we get destructive with it. And what we're going to do on this is to try and select the subject. So I'm going to go to select subject. And we're hoping that it's going to get what we want. Now it's got some of it, but what I would try and do is to keep this area around here. So we're getting all this detail and that's quite nice. We're losing a little bit on the edge there. Now what I'm going to use now is the object selection tool, and that's usually with the quick selection tool, the magic wand tool. If you haven't got that actually on your menu, you can go down to these little dots at the bottom there. I've got all the tools, so go to edit toolbar. Any tools that you haven't got will be on this side. So if you're missing that tool, you can come on here and you can click on it and you can drag it to the left hand side. Now, such as the frame tool I haven't got, and that's on the K section. So if I just come down and see if I've got any K sections on there, I, J, K, and I haven't, so I'm just going to drag that down and put it here in between these. And now I've included that tool and the triangle tool as well, which is U. Let's come down to the U. And I've got some U selections, so I can put that in with the other U tools and drag it onto there. So now I've got all the tools. So any tools that you're missing, that's how you get them. Then I can click on done. And now I've got all the tools instead of just some. Okay, so I now need to click off that. Let's just go to a selection tool there. Okay, so back onto this one, which is the object selection tool. And on the options bar, I need to make sure that I'm on the second icon there, which is to select. And I'm just going to see if I can neaten this edge up. So I'm just going to draw over the edge there and neaten that up. So it's selected that, that's fine. And then let's just see if it will include this area a little bit better. So I'm going to go over that, and it's got a little bit. Let's just keep clicking and hoping it will add that. So I'm just going over these areas. You can see I'm not trying to draw exactly to it. I'm just going over the areas. I'm not too worried about some parts. I'm trying to get the edge. Saying there's nothing selected. Okay, we'll go a bit bigger on that. And that's looking good. So I think we're all okay on the edge there. But what I would probably include is this area here. Now I'm going to do that a different way. I'm going to go to the standard lasso tool. I'm going to make sure it's on add to selection, so the second icon at the top there on the options bar. And I'm going to make sure that the feather is on 0. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure I don't go out the edge there. There's a little bit there. I'm going to add that little bit. I'm going to draw that bit freehand. And I'm going to come inside and just a little bit at a time, I'm going to click and drag very carefully so I don't go over the edge. Any areas in this area. So I'm just doing this freehand, and if you do it just a little bit at a time, it's quite easy to do. You haven't got to be a great artist, so we want to include all of this area. I'm doing it quite quick now, so there we go. And these little areas that I've missed there. So that's how to work and to get a larger area. Once you've got a basic outline, you can just add using this tool, and there's just a few little areas there that aren't included. So I'm just going to go over those. And I think we're looking good now, that's okay. Maybe this little area, perhaps we want to include that. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our selection without using anything fancy, just using that one tool. And it does learn this, so if you've gone and you selected an area that you didn't want, if you go to this tool, which is the subtract, we could then go and drag over that area and it will take it back out. So using the tool to the subtract and the add to selection, you can get what you want. So we're just going to go on the layers there, and now we're going to click a layer mask. So that button down there on the layers, the square with a black circle, that has now put a mask on. So if I just hide all this, that is what we've selected. That's what we've got. Okay. It's a little bit pixelated on the edges, and I say that's simply because this is a low res image. But I'm going to click on the layer below now, and I'm going to make sure that I click on it and I'm not selecting the top layer. Because what I want to do now is to delete this area and to content aware fill the area that I'm taking out. Now that sounds pretty complicated, so rather than try and explain, I'll actually do it and you can see what it's going to do. So I'm on this layer, I'm on the background copy below the top layer where we've got the mask. Holding down Command on the Mac or Control on the PC and keeping the button down, if I then click on this mask, that will make a selection of the mask, but I'm still on this layer. That's the important bit. Yeah. And what I do now is I hold down the backspace. Sorry, I don't hold down the backspace yet. I hold down the Shift key and I tap the backspace key, and I'll get this fill come up. Now, I've used 50% grey in the past, so where it says contents, I need to click on that and select content aware. I'll click on OK, and you can see it working away, and it's done that quite quickly because we're on a low res image. If I just hide that now, you can see it's done that. So it's filled that area in. So just taking off the top one there so you can see what it's done. I'll go to select, deselect. Now, why am I doing this? And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going to blur the background. If I blurred the background without content aware filling that area, what I would get is all those where the hand is and it's quite dark, all that would bleed out when you blur it and it would look a mess. But now I've got rid of all that and content aware filled it with the background. You watch what happens now. I'll get a clean selection. And I'll show you the difference between the two, because I'll do it again without doing that after. So I now go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we can select a radius just to diffuse that background just as much as we want. You could go all the way, but it looks unreal because this colour now is not looking right with the background. So we need to make sure we've still got a bit there, but I'm just smoothing it out a little bit, and I click on OK. Okay, there we go. So that takes out all the sort of the creases that was in the background where the lights are shining onto it. And it just gives a nicer image. Okay, so I'm getting a bit complex now, ain't I? Don't try doing this, because I'm just trying to show you what would happen if you didn't do that with the background copy. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate this layer. And I say you wouldn't do this at all. I'm just trying to show you. And on this one below, I'm going to right click on that and delete the layer mask. So if I delete that, I've got exactly the same underneath. Yeah. So let's imagine we hadn't done this. I'll just take that away, where we done the content aware fill, and that give us that. If I hadn't done that and I went to this background where I haven't done the content aware fill, and I'll do the same thing, and I can do that simply by going to filter. It will remember the last one I've done, which is Gaussian blur, and look at the effect. Look at the difference. See all this shadowing going on? Yeah, and it doesn't look neat. If we look at the one below, see the sharp edges, see the difference in the two? So that is why we do the content aware fill, to give it a nice clean background. Now there are other things that I could do on that, but I don't want to go into those in this. We could just try, I'm going to duplicate this little top layer now, the one with the mask on. Let's just see if this works. I'm just going to go to image. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to filter, sorry. I'm going to click on filter, go to other, and we're going to click on high pass. Now, most people use this for sharpening. I like to take it really high, although on this image it's a low quality image, so I probably don't have to go quite as high what I usually do. So I'm going to go to about 79–80% and click on that. And then I'm going to go to the layer mode and I'm going to change that to soft light. And if you look now at the difference, see how that's sharpened that, and it's given a bit more oomph and a bit more clarity. And if it was a little bit too much, you could bring the opacity down. Just make this a bit narrower. So you can bring the opacity down and make it as sharp as you want. That's probably enough there. So we're on 79%. So that just gives a little bit more contrast to the image. Okay, so hope that helps you out. That's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching.